So the topic of today is lifestyle. So we will, of course, touch on your career, but I would just love to know, what does a successful life look like for you, kind of behind the scenes?
Wow, I think a successful life for me, and I think a lot of people would echo the sentiment, is having the freedom to do what you want with who you want, when you want. And I think for as long as we don't recognize financial freedom as a very important freedom, a lot of us stay stuck, because then we stay in jobs we don't want to because we need the financial income. We stay in relationships we don't want to because we don't want to not split rent. And we let's be honest, sometimes you got to call a spade a spade. But I think it's so important that women understand that you have to be able to control your own earning capacity in order to live the life that you deserve to live. And so for me, when I think about what freedom is, when I think about just a successful life overall, it is anchored in financial freedom. But that financial freedom allows me to then volunteer my time and to do good work and to go into, different African countries and countries around the world that need my help but can't afford me. So when I have a solid financial base, I can do more of the things that I really want to do in the world.
Hello, everybody. This show has been created to inspire you to take action,
Celebrating and reframing what success looks like.
to be the best version of ourselves that we can be.
And we have incredible speakers for you tonight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Future Females Show. I'm Susanna Kennedy, your host, and this is my lovely co-host, Lauren Dallas.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're sitting in front of me or tuning in online, you know what the Future Female Show is all about. It is about celebrating, but also reframing what success looks like for each individual and for all of you, so you can see what is possible. And that is exactly what tonight's guest is all about.
Oh, absolutely. Can I just say that we are in the presence of a real life icon, guys? And I am not just saying that because I'm assuming she's an icon or I'm making her an icon. She's literally been voted by Vogue International as one of the 33 top women in the world, most influential women in the world, alongside Nicole Kidman and Michelle Obama.
Candice!
I mean, what the actual... Now, I never read intros, but I'm reading this one because you girls need to know, all right? She is also a 3 times published author, known for her work in forgiveness, reconciliation, and trauma. She is a multi-award-winning speaker. She's an international podcaster, and she has spoken at TEDx. I welcome the amazing, the incredible, the fantastic Candice Mama.
Wow. I mean, with that intro, I'm like, where is she? I want to meet her. Thank you. It's so great to be sitting on this side because in that international podcasting career, I've interviewed both of you. So it's very cool.
This is a true story.
This is us getting our own back, Candice. Now tell us about yourself. No,
we're not
going to ask that.
But we are going to ask, what with all of these incredible, and guys, I've literally just scratched the surface. If you go and Google this incredible woman, you will be blown away at what she has achieved at such a young age. I am blown away. Every time I learn more about you, I'm like, what the actual? What? Candice? I mean, seriously, you're amazing. So with all of these accolades, and they are real, and they are brilliant, and they are fantastic, but what do you want people to know about you as a person?
Wow. I mean, what you guys have built with Future Females is exactly what I believe for humanity and for women across the world. I think for me, as much as I do appreciate, don't get me wrong, who does not want Vogue on your side? But it's not about Vogue. It's not about the accolades. It's really about hopefully showing women that you have the ability to do extraordinary things. You do not need permission. You do not need someone to give you that, approval to go ahead. But you are the person that's in charge of your own destiny. And I really hope that's the legacy I leave behind.
I think you're already doing
Yeah, I was going to say.
Thank you,
Not a
thank
legacy,
you.
You're living it every day.
Thank you.
So the topic of today is lifestyle. So we will, of course, touch on your career, but I would just love to know, what does a successful life look like for you, kind of behind the scenes?
Wow, like I think a successful life for me, and I think a lot of people would echo the sentiment, is having the freedom to do what you want with who you want when you want. And I think for as long as we don't recognize financial freedom as a very important freedom, a lot of us stay stuck because then we stay in jobs we don't want to because we need the financial income. We stay in relationships we don't want to because we don't want to not split rent. And we end, let's be honest, sometimes you got to call a spade a spade. But I think it's so important that women understand that you have to be able to control your own earning capacity in order to live the life that you deserve to live. And so for me, when I think about what freedom is, when I think about just a successful life overall, it is anchored in financial freedom. But that financial freedom allows me to then volunteer my time and to do good work and to go into, different African countries and countries around the world that need my help but can't afford me. So when I have a solid financial base, I can do more of the things that I really want to do in the world.
Yes.
I love that answer so much.
And I think obviously both of us know you to an extent, but for everyone that doesn't, how has that played into your career and I guess what you're spending your time on now?
I mean, I think it's played into every part of my career because what lifestyle is to me and what the incredible speakers on this platform speak about and touch on is how do you use what you have, the skill set, the networks you are part of, to create a life that is deeply enriching for yourself. And I knew from a very early age that I'm a storyteller. I wanted to tell stories and I want to tell other people's stories in an effective way. And for me, everything I do is built on storytelling. I just call it creative storytelling because whether I'm helping you as a personal brand reach the next level, that's storytelling. When I get onto these different platforms like TEDx and, speaking in front of different people and on the same platform, it's storytelling. And so I think we just need to learn how to narrate our own experiences in an effective way that empowers us to move forward.
So I think that's so important. We're always speaking about our zone of genius. How do you find your zone of genius and how do you then step into your zone of genius and really nurture it so that it can come into its full potential? So what were the first steps of you stepping into that path of finding your zone of genius? How did that look?
Or have you just always known?
Oh, wow. I think that's actually two-pronged. I think I always knew that I wanted to make massive impact. Like since I was young, I just wanted to be in front of a lot of people, but I didn't want to be there for the sake of being there. My icons were like Princess Diana. It wasn't like whoever was famous at the time. And I think for me, my zone of genius was really always being interested in story. I was interested in different kinds of stories, from the telenovelas to someone just sharing their life experience. I always enjoyed listening to people's lived experiences. And I realized that so much of the power that we have as human beings is based on how we speak about ourselves and how we speak about our experience. There's two different storytellers in life. There's the storyteller that plays from a victim narrative, which is life is always happening to me. And every lived reality they will share with you is from a premise of life always happens to me. And ironically, every time you see them, it can be 10 years, 30 years, life is always happening to them. And then there are people who speak from an empowered place, from a victor's mentality, that have overcome really big obstacles in their life. However, they feel as though because life has happened to me, I am stronger for it, I'm a victor of it, and I am an incredible human being who's going to do phenomenal things, because if that couldn't break me, nothing else will. And so it's very important how we tell personal story, how we speak to ourselves, how we speak about ourselves to others, and really realize how significant that is and what we end up achieving in life.
100%, because our words create our reality. Exactly. But talking about words, you are a 3 times published author, which is amazing. It's really, really beautiful. How did you come to writing your first book?
I mean, I think, as you guys can tell, I'm never short of words, so I just needed to get them out of here. But my first book was actually a moment of serendipity. So I was actually putting work into the world. I was blogging about random stuff, because how I got to be known in the public sphere was through a very traumatic story, which is my father was killed by an apartheid assassin. I met the assassin, I forgave him, I advocated for his parole, and we received it. And I got thrust into the public spotlight for the story, and I was 25. And I remember thinking to myself that I don't want people to believe that I was kissed by an angel or I was Mother Teresa. I need people to know that this is an ability they themselves possess. And so I started blogging, and I would blog about insane things. Like, I would be like, can you believe this mother trucker just left me? Like, who does he think he is? And people are interviewing me about, like, so you forgave? And I'm like, go visit my blog, just Candice. I also got left. And to me, it was very important that I was in charge of what my public narrative was. And through those moments, just being in that deep alignment and being committed to my own storytelling in the world, the publisher came up to me and just said, hey, I'd love you. I love your blogs. They're so funny. They're so contradictory to the serious nature of your work. And I'd love you to write a book. And that's how it came about.
So I think that is so great, because, again, you're showing all these different facets of yourself, and that you're not just, one-dimensional, which is so important for people, because we are. But I want to just touch on something that really struck me hard when hearing about your story, and that was that we know that forgiveness leads to freedom, right? If we don't forgive someone, we are actually in jail. It's that Nelson Mandela quote. He said, if I do not forgive them, I will be walking around in jail for the rest of my life. So we know this. And that is that, but that's the first step. But you asked your father's murderer, did he forgive himself? And that for me is just another deeper level of where we as humanity need to rise towards. How did you come to know that that was the question that was needed at that time? What prompted you?
Thank you for that question. I think it was, in the moment, firstly. But I think what I realized as the encounter was happening, when I was growing up, I villainized this man. I mean, only evil people do such atrocious things. And I read a lot about him, and he was the biggest apartheid assassin in South Africa. And I remember just having all this narrative being told to me that this man is the most evil human being on the planet. And I believed the stories. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting with this human being, and as we are talking and the conversations unfolding, I start to realize that at the end of the day, as bad as everything he did was, he was still a human being. And I was like, I'm a human being, and so's this individual. And so to me, it was, before I could tell him I forgave him, which I already had, I needed to find out if he had forgiven himself. And his response to me changed the course of my life. This is why I'm sitting here with you today. I remember, when I asked him, Eugene, do you forgive yourself? He looked away and he wiped the side of his eye because a tear had come down. And he said, when you've done the things I've done, how do you forgive yourself? And I started to sob, just to start crying. And what surprised me in that moment was that I wasn't crying for myself. I wasn't crying for what he had done to me, but I was crying for this human being sitting in front of me, because I realized there was nothing I could say to take away his pain, and there was nothing he could say to take away mine. And so when that moment happened, it really showed me the power of the human spirit, and it showed me how far empathy can move us forward in our own healing.
Wow, absolutely. And I think, the story is so, so beautiful, and just really represents the principle you said, right? You can't choose the things that happen to you, but you can choose how you respond. And as you said, that changed and pivoted the whole course of your life. And now you help so many other people going through, I can't say similar, but feeling like perhaps you felt in those situations.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on that a little bit, especially when it comes to similarity. The one thing I've learned in my work is that all of us carry trauma. And I know a lot of us compare our trauma. However, what I want to say is just because someone else is in pain does not minimize your pain. Just because someone else had a sandwich doesn't make you any less hungry. And so it's very important for us to realize that our trauma is ours to carry and to heal. And there's no point in us minimizing our own pain because we don't think it equates to someone else. If you're in pain, it's your responsibility to heal it and take accountability for it.
I think that's such an important point because so many of us are taught to just like, no, think about the starving children in Africa. You know, how many people have heard that? Like, just think about the starving children in Africa. Imagine you were like one of those kids who were being sex trafficked. Do you know what I mean? Like these awful things. But actually, all of our trauma is ours, and we minimize things to such a degree that we don't own our own reality, right? This is something that comes up for me as a coach all the time, and it's something I've had to really work on with myself as well. And we all deserve to have our experiences. Your experience is valid. Whoever's listening, your experience is valid. Like, it's so, so, so important. And, you know, coming back to the forgiveness, I know that for me, my freedom came in. So I was abused by my biological father, and I shared that story with you. And now I can't be in his presence because he still is abusive. I've tried. But where my forgiveness, because I couldn't get him to forgive himself, was finding that compassion. And I think that that's also the step, because I know that some people are in these situations that they can't have that conversation. You were so lucky to have that conversation, that forum. But when you can step into a place where you forgive yourself, and then step into a place where you can find compassion for that person and see them as a human being who's got their own struggles and their own traumas, I think that's what ends up setting you free, right?
Absolutely. And I also think it's very important for me to distinguish between forgiveness and reconciliation. And so forgiveness is completely a selfish decision. The reason I say it's a selfish decision is because when you are living in trauma and in pain, you are a prisoner in your own reality and life. And the trauma and pain becomes like someone is a puppeteer. And every time you think about them, it elicits an emotional reaction. And whatever controls your emotions controls your life. And so when you give someone that complete power to control your emotional body, they control your reality. And therefore, the lens at which you operate in life becomes through the color of the lenses of your own trauma. That's why some people will say, oh, all men are bad. No, girl, the men you date are bad. Okay? you need to change your perspective. And it's because the trauma lens allows us to only see one person, because they become the only viable option to us, because that's our reality. And when we forgive, we're choosing to take off that lens of perception. And we're saying, I'm choosing me. I'm choosing to take back power and control over my own life because I deserve it. And no, I did not deserve what happened to me. No, I do not condone what happened to me. And no, and this one is important, I will not forget what happened to me, because forgiveness is not about forgetting. Because if you forget what you have experienced, you lose the lesson and you lose the strength. But when you remember what happened to you and you realize how powerful you are by overcoming it, you keep both the lesson and you keep the experience, but you don't keep the pain. And so reconciliation is then the next step about choosing whether or not you choose to sit with a person who brought the trauma into your space. And the hardest thing to realize is that sometimes the people that hurt us do not acknowledge that they hurt us. And it is up to you to accept that and keep moving forward. And forgiveness does not mean that you keep those bad people or bad influences in your life. You can forgive and say, I don't need this drama. I don't need this baggage. I don't need this trauma. I'm leaving. You know, so it's very important to realize that forgiveness is a self-empowerment step, and it's got nothing to do with the other person.
I think that's a hell yeah, Candice. Is that not a hell yeah, guys?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Cheers, my darling.
So, Candice, we don't know what this is about, but you did prep us before the interview that there was an interesting story from New York. So I'm going to ask you to share what that is.
Absolutely. And I think this was when Susanna and I were actually sharing about how when you're in alignment with your own destiny and life, how magical moments happen. Yeah. And I remember I was in New York just like frazzlehead, and I'm like, oh my gosh, America. And I was moving around, and I just started my career in mediation. And I remember a friend of mine just said to me, hey, I've got tickets for this random show, but we've got to like get to Times Square by 5 a.m. I'm thinking, girl, I'm a lot of things, but 5 a.m. is a little rough for me. But somehow I'm like, you know what? I'm in New York. New me, new city, it is what it is. And I wake up, I end up getting to the station on time, and it happens to be Good Morning America. Fabulous. We get our tickets, we stand in line. I meet my mother's future husband, who she squandered, but it's okay. You know? Any available over 50s, I've got a mother. And so we get into the studio, and I remember just like sitting there, and the guest performer, because I didn't know anything that was happening, was Seal. And so I'm like, I love Seal. But I was also like, I don't want Seal to think I'm a groupie though. So I'm still going to be composed. Okay, I love you, Seal, but I'm also gangster. Okay. And so Seal performs and like goes backstage, and I'm just thrilled that I got to see Seal live. I was so close to him, I could have touched him, but I didn't make too much eye contact because I was too gangster. And so anyway, so it's a break, much like how we're running the show today. And I remember just making eye contact with this one guy, and we just chatting, you know, he was taking pictures, and I'm just super friendly like that, except when I'm gangster. And and I remember he's like, hey, you know, I love your energy and vibe. Do you want to follow me? And I'm like, why not? I want to get kidnapped in New York. And so I followed him, and he happened to be the executive producer of the show. And he shows me behind the scenes and everything. And we're walking, and guess who I walk into? My man crush Monday, Seal. And now I forgot I was still gangster. So my legs betrayed me. I was like, oh, Lord. Oh, I was like, hi, kissed by a rose. And he was amazing. And I remember he was like, oh my God, I saw you the whole performance. I'm like, he's a liar. And then he said, you are the coolest woman I've ever met. He was married to Heidi Klum, still a liar. But I took it. I took it and I put it on my Tinder bio. I'm like, y'all are never going to believe this. If I'm too cool for Seal, guess what I am for you? So yes, that's my very dramatic story.
Dramatic or fantastic? I mean, what the actual... But you seem to have this effect on men, my darling, because I have the story of Mr. Les Brown. I mean, Les Brown. Every time Candice was about to interview Les Brown, he would end up a little gushing puppy, like putty in her hand. True or false? True or false, Candice?
I'm still waiting for my ring.
Oh, yeah. He says, oh no, the ring is coming. The ring is coming every time. Who is your favorite person that you've... I mean, I know it's me, but besides me, who is the best interview you've ever had?
Obviously current company excluded, because that would just be unfair and people would think I'm like, you know, showing favoritism. But I think the most impactful interview would have the biggest interview of my career was probably Deepak Chopra. He was the big one, right? But he wasn't necessarily my most, and I love Deepak. All respect to him, all the good stuff. But it wasn't necessarily that one. To me, it's always the interviews that stick with you and the interviews that ask you questions, make you ask questions and really leave you like in a different space. And to me, that was probably Mal Robbins. I think Mal, it wasn't actually the interview in and of itself that made a difference. Let me tell you the kind of person Mal Robbins is. A pre-interview. So most people, when you're about to interview them, try and jump on as quick as possible and jump off as quick as possible. I remember Mal jumped on, and she said to me, we greeted. I'd already interviewed her about 3-4 times, but this one was for the public platform. And I said, hey, Mal, how are you? And she did the same thing that she's done all 4 times. And she said, hey, Candice, good, how are you? Catching up. And then she was like, please tell me, what do you need from me to make this the best conversation you're going to have today. And she was like, how do you want me to answer questions and how deep do you want me to go so that your audience is the most impacted by this conversation? And that changed my life, and it really changed the way I move through interviews and how I relate, and when I'm being interviewed, how the grace I wish that I show the interviewer too.
So you're not about to jump off the stage. Yes, thank you for sharing that. You've obviously achieved so much and met the most incredible people. I mean, Susanna told me you even sat down with the Dalai Lama, and just your world has been amazing. What advice would you have for someone who wants to tread in those footsteps?
Yeah, I think, advice, and I think this is it can sound really like overused, which is like authenticity. But truly, I would say that listen to the beat of your own heart. Each and every one of us has a soul story. Each and every one of us has a dream that's waiting to be manifested into reality. And I think so many of us are so afraid that we hold ourselves back from achieving that genius that is there to be manifested. And I would say that as scary as it is, jump into your own destiny. Bet on yourself. Because if there's anyone in the world you should be betting on, it's not Beyonce. It's not Jay-Z. Don't be a stan. Be a stan for yourself. Clap for yourself. Cheer for yourself. Be your biggest cheerleader. You post a selfie, you better like that ish. If you need to comment back on yourself, comment back on yourself. I'm like, be the president of your own cheer club, because you know what? Life is hard. Let's be honest. A lot of people will tell us a lot of things like sit, meditate, do the affirmations, and your life will be easy. No, it won't. But it will make it easier. Than being negative and being sad about it. But I think definitely bet on yourself. Choose you. Don't let any external voice eliminate the voice that's within you. So that would probably be my advice.
So I love that, and it's perfect for our last question of the evening, because Lauren and I are both so pro celebrating ourselves. Like, we are always like, women just don't do it nearly enough, So what is the thing that so far, with your whole life of all these incredible frickin' things, what is the thing that you feel most proud of about yourself?
Wow, I love that question. And I know a lot of the time people expect it to be the same stuff, right? Like United Nations or Vogue or, all the cool stuff. And I'm very proud of those things. But I think for me, the thing I'm most proud of about myself is the human being I am. And I think every time I step out the house, I live by one motto. I am responsible for the energy I bring into a space. I am not going to let you dictate what my energy is. And so I think so many people just walk around reckless, waiting to be like, ooh, this energy. Okay, I'm going to meet you at negative because you're negative. No, I'm going to meet you where I am, and you will raise your vibration to meet me too. Okay, because we are both leaving smiling today. Okay, even if I must fight you for that smile, so you are going to smile. And so I think that's what I'm most proud of, just having the ability to control my own emotions and help others at least smile once they've encountered me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Lady,
Thank you, Candice.
Thank you. This has been an honor, truly. And I just want to thank both of you. And I know that this is not the part of the show I'm supposed to talk. But they're like, okay, we should be wrapping her up now. No, but I really want to thank both of you for what you do for women. I think for what you do for business and what you do for the collective consciousness. I think with more messages like this, with more women like this, the world is changing. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you. It's been a tremendous honor being here.
Well,
Thank you
too.
so much.
We appreciate that. You definitely brought the energy. You definitely raised the vibration. So thank you for that as well. And just for showing up as you always do.
Yeah, you're amazing. Thank you. And thank you to everybody out there watching and our live studio audience. You guys are all amazing too. Hell yeah!
Thank
to another
you.
episode of Future Female Shows. See you all soon.
See you next time.